Well, one of the things that started happening in the workshops that we've been teaching around the world is we've been seeing people right during our events that have MS or lupus or cancer or chronic pain or food allergies and all kinds of different health conditions. We've seen dramatic physical changes take place either during the event, right, during the workshop, or we're getting emails saying, hey, I just got my blood values and my condition doesn't exist any longer. So you start thinking about the placebo. Why is it you can give someone a sugar pill, a saline injection, or do a sham surgery, a fake surgery, and a certain percentage of those people get well? In other words, they accept, believe, and surrender to the idea, the thought that that drug, that's not a drug, it's a sugar pill, that saline injection or that sham surgery is going to produce the effect. Some of those people, you can do a brain scan on them, and you can see that there's been physical changes in their brain as if they've taken the drug. In other words, when a person accepts, believes, and surrenders to the thought that they're going to get better and doesn't analyze it, it begins to activate their autonomic nervous system, and now the body makes its own pharmaceuticals to match the exact drug that they're taking. Now, most people, I don't think they get this on a deep level, because if you begin to understand that this occurs, then I ask the question, well, why give a person a sugar pill, a saline injection, or a sham surgery? Why don't we teach them how to do it by thought alone? And so the research that we've been doing over the last year and a half or so shows that you don't need a sugar pill or a saline injection or a fake surgery. That there are three principles that come into the effect of the placebo. And if you can teach people these three principles, you should be able to produce the same change in their state of being. So the first principle is called conditioning.
Okay.
And conditioning is based on the idea that if you give someone, this is a great study. They gave a group of children an inhaler for asthma. And what they did was they blended a scent of cinnamon with the stimulation of the drug. And every time they had an asthmatic reaction, they would inhale the albuterol, and it would cause bronchial dilation, and it would help them breathe better. But what they were doing is they were inhaling also the scent of cinnamon. Unbeknownst to the children, they kept lowering the value of the drug, and the children were just spraying the cinnamon's water in their mouth, and they were conditioning their body chemically by removing the drug and anticipating the effect of the drug. And so it works with pain as well. You can give people a morphine injection, give them a morphine injection, give them a morphine injection, and then don't give them the morphine injection, and the brain makes their own morphine.
Wow.
You can give a Parkinson's patient a certain drug to help their dopamine levels. Do it again, do it again, do it again, and then give them a saline injection, and before you know it, they're making their own dopamine. Now, not just a little dopamine, 200 times the amount of dopamine. So if you are conditioning yourself to take an aspirin every day because it helps to reduce your headaches or your pain in your back, in time then, if you produce a pill that looks like an aspirin and you give it to a patient, a certain percentage of them will accept, believe, and surrender that they're taking the aspirin when they're just taking a saline injection, and their body will create their own anti-inflammatories by thought alone. Now, they can't consciously make their pain go away. They can't consciously increase their dopamine levels.
It's the routine.
It's the conditioning in which if you keep conditioning the body in anticipation, just like Pavlov's dog begins to salivate when the bell is rang, the body begins to prepare itself for the event ahead of the actual event by creating the exact chemistry in anticipation of it occurring. So then there's a great study where we talk about anticipatory nausea. Like many people, when they're going to their first chemotherapy treatment, they get nauseous on their drive to the first chemotherapy treatment because their doctor told them that they were going to get sick from chemotherapy. So on their way to the treatment, they're thinking about getting nauseous and they're accepting the idea that they could, and then in a matter of moments, their body begins to create the chemistry to match the thought, and they begin to get nauseous. So the question is, if 50% of those people can get nauseous on their drive to their first chemotherapy treatment, 50% of the people in the world can get healthy on their drive to work in anticipation of being well. We tell our staff at our clinic, if 50% of those people can get sick on their drive to their first chemotherapy treatment, 50% of our patients can get well on their drive, and because as they begin to think about what the treatment is going to do, they begin to make their own chemicals to match it. So which brings me to the second point, which is what we call expectation. So then expectation is really highly important, because when you start administering some type of placebo, what a person does is someone says, hey, this saline injection they don't say saline, they say this new drug is going to take away your Parkinson's, and the doctor's enthusiastic, and the patient begins to select the potential in the quantum field, a new reality, a new idea, a new future, and then they begin to emotionally embrace what it would feel like to be well. They begin to create an elevated emotion. So when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, the way you think and the way you feel creates a new state of being. And it is those chemicals that begin to change the body by thought alone. You can tell a patient, hey, look, we're going to do this serious surgery on your knee. You can wheel them in there and you can slice their knee open and never do the surgery. And this has happened more than once since Mosley's work, and it shows then that in 2 years, 6 years later, these men are running around with no knee pain, full range of motion. Well, how the heck did that happen?
Wow.
Well, they believed, accepted, and surrendered to the idea that the surgery would work. And the thought began to imprint into the autonomic nervous system, and it was the autonomic nervous system that healed the cartilage. They couldn't consciously heal the cartilage, but they selected the idea that they were better, they emotionally embraced it, and then they surrendered it to a greater mind, and it's exactly the formula for how the second mechanism works. So people who surrender really well tend to be the people who just have the most trust in a future. So the second point is expectation.
Yes. And the third?
And we've taught people how to do that exact thing. Number one, if we're going back to the first one, we've taught them how to condition their body to a new mind. We do that in our workshops. In the second scenario, we have them select the potential in the quantum field, emotionally embrace it, begin to teach their body emotionally what it's going to feel like ahead of the event. And then we allow them to surrender to a greater mind and to live as if their prayers are already answered. And it's that exact mechanism that begins to start the healing process. But the third thing is called assigning meaning. And when you assign meaning to something, you increase your intention. Here's a great experiment. They took a group of Latin American maids that worked in a hotel, and they followed them around in one day, and they saw them flipping mattresses and moving furniture and scrubbing, the walls of the bathroom and making beds and pushing carts. And the scientists realized that these women were actually exceeding the Surgeon General's requirement for exercise. Now, they didn't know that they were doing that, so they divided them into two groups. They allowed one to continue doing what they were doing mindlessly, and they selected the other group and they said, do you know the benefits of exercise? You're actually burning more calories than you're making. Now, all these women most of them were overweight. Exercise helps to reduce body fat. It helps to lower your heart rate. It will change your lean body mass. It'll increase your self-esteem. And they told them all the benefits of exercise. Well, in 1 month, without changing anything, those women lost weight. Their heart rate went down 10 points.
Interesting.
They had greater self-esteem. Their lean body mass ratio was better. Why? Because they put intention, or they assigned meaning to what they were doing. So the more you know, the better results you get. So when a doctor says, we have this new drug and he or she is enthusiastic about it, or a person begins to understand, because they're participating in their therapy, what they're doing and why.
Participating in their therapy.
They're taking responsibility. Then that's why we use so much scientific knowledge in our workshops, because we want people to understand what they're doing and why. So that there's nothing left to conjecture, nothing left to faith, nothing left to dogma. They know exactly what they're doing and when. So when you increase the intention, it's when you then, the more you know, the better results you get.